The coronavirus has transformed many aspects of the Filipinos' lives. It shut down schools, businesses, workplaces, and forced millions to stay at home for extended period transformations. I'm not alone in pursuing this kind of activity nowadays. The pandemic has driven a huge increase in participation in citizen science, where people without specialized training collect data out in the world or perform simple analysis of data online to help out scientists. Stuck at home with this time in their hands, millions of amateurs around the world are gathering information on everything from birds to plants to COVID 19 at the request of their institutional researchers. And while quarantine is mostly a nightmare for us, it's a big, great accelerant for science. Advancing science and conservation in the Philippines is one of the ideals of this research. You can see on the background is setting up a mist net during a biodiversity research training expeditions in 2019. This come from a Forbes magazine, and one of the initiators of this program was a Filipina, and she is informing everyone that we could help out and we could recruit people to help the researchers' endeavors through citizen science. And this paper is entitled Determining the Spatial Distribution of Urban and Non-Urban Birds in NCR, Philippines prior and during the COVID-19 lockdown using eBird data. This was written by Stephen Capilitan, Laita Lamoste, Jennifer Lamallosa, Lawrence Rotone of the De La Salle University in Manila. The COVID-19 pandemic resulted in dramatic reductions in human movement, which may have an impact on wildlife. And as a result of the disease, based on the data, over 200,000 birds were observed by volunteers from January 2018 to December 2020 across the Philippines. And we've discovered that counts of 66% of focal urban and non-urban bird species change in the pandemic affected areas, with abundances typically increasing in comparison to pre-pandemic abundances in urban habitats and in cities where lockdowns were more pronounced or occurred at the same time as your peak bird migration. And in accordance with the spatial distribution map that we've created, our finding suggests that humans are having an impact on many of the NCR's urban and non-urban birds. And these findings suggest that we could make urban spaces more attractive to birds by reducing traffic and mitigating the disturbance caused by human transportation once we have recovered of the virus. A level of restriction to human mobility is unprecedented in modern times, and it was imposed in response to the threats posed by the coronavirus disease and the COVID-19 pandemic. The anthropos was a term coined by Rosenblum, could have a variety of consequences for other species. And because of the significant reduction in motor traffic, urban wildlife may have been particularly adversely affected as a result of the reduction of air pollution, anthropogenic noise, and the likelihood of animal collisions with automobiles, considering that many bird species are adversely affected by roads, and it is impossible for urban birds to have temporarily benefited from reduced traffic. And this species, on the other hand, benefited from human disruptions such as anthropogenic noise, which can lower intraspecific competition and predation rates. And it is possible that the anthropos had negative implications for some species. The understanding of these relationships may ultimately assist us in developing effective measures to lessen our environmental footprint in a post-COVID-19 society. The researchers used data from eBird, one of the world's largest biodiversity community science programs, to investigate whether reported bird abundance in cities and surrounding rural areas within the National Capital Region altered between the years 2018 and 2021. In case you don't know, eBird is a citizen science platform that encourages everyone to participate in the information gathering and data analysis among the non-science majors and amateur birders all around the globe. This 2-year period corresponded with the most significant reductions in human mobility in this region, and as a result of pandemic travel restrictions, bird species recorded abundances from January to December before 2018 to 2019, and during 2020 to 2021, pandemic travel restrictions were compared between the 17 cities in the National Capital Region, and to ensure that there were no differences in sampling effort, sampling location, or other sampling attributes between the pre-pandemic and the pandemic periods, we subsampled the available eBird service term checklists to ensure that there were no differences in volunteers' observations behavior during and the pre-pandemic and pandemic. The statement of the problem indicates that it is a purpose of this study to address the following questions: which bird species have been observed in the different cities of the NCR between 2018 and 2021? What are the most prevalent bird species that have been sighted in the NCR from 2018 to 2021? And lastly, which of the bird species that have been spotted in the NCR are on the IUCN Red List? And based on the data downloaded from amateur and professional birders in the NCR, technologies such as your eBird were used to analyze the top urban bird sighting sites. And the goal of this study is to provide a visual representation of quantitative eBird data on urban birds that will serve as a guide in examining natural systems throughout the cities in the NCR. And this also research was using the GIS, or Geographic Information System, for conservation scientists, practitioners, and the decision makers in general. And the areas of research for the purpose of this study, we considered every city in the NCR with 50,000 eBird data logs and at least 200 eBird sightings over the time period of our analysis. And we've used the spatial datasets of the NCR cities, and their administrative boundaries were obtained through eBird datasets. This quantitative data of species counts of identified species from the IUCN Red List, such as your vulnerable, endangered, critically endangered, restricted range, and congregator species of urban and non-urban birds were obtained through your eBird datasets. This is your spatial datasets from the NCR cities and their administrative boundaries. For the compilation of information, we collected the eBird data by the community science volunteers who took part on the eBird program was used in this study, and participants with a range of skill levels completed checklists, semi-structured surveys that record their presence and the abundance in a certain region during a certain period of time. And this information with other relevant effort metadata is stored in the eBird database in the version May 2020. And that was used. We've downloaded the eBird database, and we analyzed the large metaset of metadata that was given to us. And the results of discussion during the pandemic, a total of 4,353,739 observations were collected from this 88,846 checklists in the eBird database. And these observations were suspected for analysis and being filtered and subsampled from all available checklists in order to reduce the possibility that the results were influenced by the changes in birders' behavior. And this figure 1, it depicts the data gathered in the observed bird species count in the cities of the NCR from 2018 until the present. They have reported an increase in the number of bird observation, and this data was gathered through eBird database. Again, it can be seen in the map that there has been a significant rise in the number of bird species between 2020 and 2021, and the number of bird species counted from 2021 is significantly more than the number of the bird observations reported in 2018. It would be tempting to speculate that birds may have moved into a human-emptied metropolitan areas during the lockdown in reaction to the COVID-19 pandemic and during the period of time where humans were not around. And according to Gordo et al., birds did not appear in greater numbers in towns and cities during the lockdown that they had done previously. And when it comes to the bird species data, your whiskered tern was discovered to be the most abundant common species, tailed from 2018 to 2021 in the NCR. And the map in the figure 2 depicts that the most often encountered bird species, like the whiskered tern, are egretta, the little egret, the Eurasian tree sparrow, the rock pigeon, black-crowned night heron, barred swallow, black-headed gull, and Pacific golden plover, and it can be observed in this figure that whiskered terns can be found near the bodies of water, where they eat small fish, crustaceans, and insects, and as well as other aquatic organisms. Figure 3 depicts that the locations of the NCR where the most common birds can be found in large numbers. The bird density map only displays the number of birds observed and reported by citizens to the eBird database, not the number of birds themselves. However, this does not imply that the ranges shown represent accurate bird counts in the NCR. Rather, it can be inferred that these areas where the majority of the birding activities are concentrated, such as your Makati, Mandaluyong, Quezon City, and the larger border areas of your Las Piñas and Parañaque. Out of 115 bird species that have been reported in the NCR, 101 are considered the least concern, near threatened, 9 and 2 for vulnerable, and 3 for the endangered. Figure 5 displays the distribution of the most common urban and non-urban birds found in the NCR, such as reported by the eBird. And birds such as Igreta, Grazetta or the small egret, black-crowned night heron, whiskered tern, your Eurasian tree sparrow, your rock pigeon, and your yellow-vented bulbul were found in urban areas. For the conclusion, the researchers realized that there is a need to bring this attention to our various local governments in the NCR to need to monitor these birds and develop programs to ensure their safety and well-being, knowing that they are threatened, vulnerable, and endangered bird species that reside in the areas of the NCR. The study also demonstrated the importance of eBird data as a citizen science tool, which may be used to assist in the Philippines conservation research project by assisting in the collection of data. And the researcher proposes that the other researchers make use of the eBird data as a means of expanding your body of knowledge in the conservation of the Philippine avifauna, understanding that it has a good impact on the species. And that's it. Thank you so much for listening and have a nice day. Mabuhay.